Hi and welcome to the beginning of the Year 9 options events being held remotely this year, but obviously we are still here to help and support all Year 9 students and parents through this really important point in their school year. Historically, the kind of open evenings that we would hold in school are really well attended. It is one of this and the post-16 event, when students are choosing what to do when they finish year 11, are the two kind of pivotal moments in a child's secondary career, where they get the chance to think about what they want to do in the future and make those decisions that start to plot out the pathway ahead of them. So I know you will be very interested in listening to the presentation. There's a short section from me, and then I will hand over to Mrs. Patel to talk in detail about how we go about selecting and preparing your students for then beginning their GCSE courses at the end of this year. So I really just want to give you a bit of an overview of the things that you and your son or daughter should be thinking about at the moment in regard to choosing their GCSE and BTEC option subjects. What's really important is that students don't shut down any future pathway that they might want to consider. So what we encourage is for students to take a really broad range of subjects and to think about the things that they're successful in and that they really enjoy, so that when they are still in education at the end of year 11, they must stay in education either at school or college or with a traineeship or an apprenticeship provider post the age of 16, that they've got lots of options available to them to find what they want to do. Very few students aged 14 are sure of their career path and what they want to do in the future, and even if they are sure, often that changes quite a lot. So what we suggest is that students take a really broad selection and subjects that they really enjoy, so that they have lots of options open to them in the future. I'd like to start by just pointing out how important attendance is for students' achievement in terms of their GCSEs. Essentially, the single biggest determinant of how well children do in their GCSE studies is their attendance at school. And you'll see from this graph that if you've got attendance over the 96% in the 90s, then over 73% of children will achieve 5, 9 to 4 grades at GCSE. So bearing in mind that so much of the last two academic years have been disrupted by the remote education and school closures, it is very important that your son and daughter is in school all of the time, not missing school, and is really concentrating on those GCSE subjects in order to recover and reach their full potential. So as I said earlier, all students are required to stay in education until they're 18, and to a certain extent that makes the GCSEs a kind of stepping stone qualification. They are the things that will allow students to progress onto A-levels or onto college courses and onto the type of pathways that's going to take them into the careers of their future. In order to do that, all students should be aiming for at least 5 good GCSE grades. So they need to be selecting subjects that they think they're going to achieve well in, and that would include English and maths above a grade 4. That benchmark, that threshold, is used by sixth forms and colleges in order to judge whether students are suitable to progress onto level 3 courses. Level 2 courses are GCSE equivalent, level 3 courses is the next step at either school or college. And so although students can take more level 2 courses if they need to post 16, for the progression you really want to be aiming to move on to level 3. There are some other terms that I think it's useful for me to explain. You will see potentially a term Progress 8, which is a performance measure that schools are judged on, where the range of GCSEs is taken into account. It takes into account the student's starting point, and the score that they've got on that range of GCSEs is used to judge the school. it isn't a particular qualification in itself for your child, but it's the progress they've made in 8 of their GCSEs there, 8 highest achieving GCSEs. The EBAC you may have heard as well. So an EBAC is a certificate that's awarded to students. It's not a qualification in its own right, but it is a certificate that's awarded if students achieve a 5 or better in English, maths, science, and 1 humanities and 1 language. So if they have that particular combination and they are all above a 5, then they will also achieve the EBAC certificate. It's not something we insist students do at Mount Grace. There are some schools that insist all students follow the EBAC courses. We don't. But it is important that you consider whether that is something your child should pursue, because it is a measure that's emphasised by the government, and it's one of our performance measures as a school, and it may be something in the future that universities and things look at. So that's something to consider. So just to make sure that everybody's clear about the GCSE grading system, this was reformed a few years ago, but if you haven't got an older sibling that's already gone through the process and you're thinking back to your own school days, it can be helpful to just correlate the GCSE grades as they are now numerically back to the old standard letter grades. So we're encouraging all students to try to achieve at least a grade 4 if they can, so a standard pass in their GCSE subjects. And as I said, that will allow them to progress onto level 3 courses. That's the equivalent of a lower C grade. A strong pass is the equivalent of an upper C or a lower B. And you can see the way the rest of the grades correlate onto the old system. At Mount Grace, we offer 2 different types of qualification styles. We offer a broad range of GCSEs. The GCSEs are linear. That means that they are fully assessed at the end of the course. So almost all of them do not have any controlled assessment. There is a little bit in some of the art, D&T type subjects, but most have no coursework or controlled assessment throughout them, and the grade that the child achieves is determined by their performance in the exams at the end of the 2-year course. The GCSEs were reformed in 2011 to increase demand. They do place a greater emphasis on literacy and being able to read and understand what's being asked, and they are graded from 1 to 9, as I said, with a 4 to 5 being roughly equal to a C grade. We also offer a range of BTECs, which are GCSE equivalent courses. These are more vocational. They have a route in industry and in certain workplaces. They are predominantly coursework, so they do have a small examined component, but ultimately you achieve parts of the course as you go along. So as you complete a unit, that unit is assessed and that unit will contribute towards your overall grade. The exams that are taken as part of this qualification are within the course, so they're not at the end in the last term of year 11, but spread throughout the course, and that can be something that's useful if there's a mixture of BTECs and GCSEs for a student, because that can reduce the exam load at the end of year 11, so how many exams they actually have to sit and take. So we're really proud that we offer these vocational qualifications alongside our GCSEs, and the vast majority of students take a combination of both courses, and that works very well for them, and different ways and styles of learning. We wouldn't normally recommend that students take more than 2 BTECs, and Ms Patel will go into that in a bit more detail, because that can be a lot of workload in terms of coursework completion. So the ones we offer at level 2 are business, health and social care, performing arts, where this child can specialise in drama or dance, and sport. And I'm very proud to say that these are very good qualifications, and offer really strong progression pathways into level 3. We offer a lot of those courses also as an A-level equivalent. So I would encourage all students to consider whether 1 or 2 BTECs should be part of their mixture. So finally, just before I hand you over to Mrs Patel, just to summarise the things I think that you should be considering at the beginning of this important chapter for your son or daughter. It is important to think about future pathways and progression routes. What might your son or daughter want to do in the future, and is there something that they would be reducing their chances of doing? There aren't that many things that require a specific GCSE portfolio that require a particular combination of GCSEs. One exception might be, for example, if you wanted to go into medicine and you want to go on to the A-levels in science, it would be probably sensible to take triple science as preparation for that, because it is harder to get to make progression onto those A-levels. Not impossible, but harder from double science than it is triple. But it might be a good idea to start, if your son or daughter does have a particular university course or career in mind, by looking at the UCAS website, which is the Universities and Colleges Application System, just to look at what they might want to take at A-level in the future, or what they might want to do at college, to make sure that they're not limiting their future progression. The fundamental, most important thing to consider, I think, is your son or daughter's interests, skills and strengths. What do they like doing? What do they enjoy doing? 2 years is a long time to learn a course that you're not fully invested in. So, they shouldn't be thinking about what their friends are choosing, or what their, who are their favourite teachers, but really what they love to do. And they will find that it's much easier to keep going with the hard work that's ahead of them if they're on courses that really suit their interests, skills and strengths. And of course, keeping that broad basis so that they've got lots of options to choose from in the future. This is just the beginning of several events. We will have one-to-one interviews to support you as well. And I'll hand over to Mrs. Patel in this presentation now, so that she can explain a little bit more about how we go about selecting your options choices. Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Patel, and as Mrs. Simpson mentioned, I'm going to take you through some of the key events and the actual process for selecting options for your son or daughter, and how you can best support them through this process, because it is a really important time for them. For the first time in their whole school career, really, they've had a choice about what they might study and what pathway they might take to future learning, future jobs, future careers. So it is a really important time, and hopefully this presentation will take you through some of the key things that you could be doing and thinking about over the coming weeks. So although I've just mentioned options and choices, there are elements of Key Stage 4 that students do not get a choice about, and there are core subjects that everybody has to study. I'll go through those in a moment. But the main focus of this options process and all the events is to really drill down on where the students do get a choice within the parameters that we set, and how they might be able to make the best selection for their future success. So the core subjects, the subjects that you have to study, include English language and English literature, and they are just incorporated within the English teaching, and by the end of the 2 years, we hope all our students will receive a qualification in the English language and qualifications in English literature. Mathematics is also compulsory, as is science, although some students will choose to take triple science, and that is one of the options. So every student has to do science, whether it's in the combined form, which leads to 2 qualifications, or in the triple form, which leads to 3 qualifications, but also takes up one of your options. And citizenship. We feel really strongly at Mountgrave School that citizenship is a real core subject. It helps students understand themselves in relation to the world around them, and helps them become better citizens that have a voice and a right in the country that they choose to live in. And finally, we have Thrive lessons and core PE. So you'll be aware that the Thrive lessons teach our students how to be mentally, physically and emotionally healthy, and core PE is a legal requirement to keep students physically fit. But both Thrive and core PE are non-examined elements of the student study. So there's no formal exam at the end of the course, and there's no formal qualification. And then in addition to this, there are 4 option subjects that the students will take on as part of their full set of Key Stage 4 study. So just to reiterate a little of what Mrs. Simpson mentioned about Progress 8 in the English Baccalaureate, the EBAC. So it encourages the study of a particular range of subjects, and doing well in this range of subjects may be an important measure for future university and employment. And students could consider triple science as part of this combination, but EBAC is absolutely achievable from combined science as well. So the Department for Education agenda around EBAC is that students study a broad range of subjects to include traditionally academic subjects. So it's not a new qualification in itself, but it's a certification that recognises students' achievement across selected academic subjects by getting strong passes in those subjects. So at Mount Grey School, we do support the EBAC initiative and encourage those students capable of achieving good grades in the EBAC subjects to follow this route. And you can do that by choosing French or German alongside history or geography. However, we do appreciate that this combination of subjects is not always appropriate for all students. And if this is the case, then we ask that instead students will choose at least one subject from the EBAC list. But you'll be able to talk more about this at your one-to-one interviews that are coming up on the 16th of March. So what else is coming up? So here we are today. You should have this options video presentation link and you should be watching it with your son or daughter and thinking about any questions that you want to ask, anything that's coming up that is a bit of a concern. From Friday the 26th of February through the post, so you'll probably get it hopefully by Monday, you will receive a hard copy version of the options booklet, but you'll also receive an electronic version, so you can start looking through that together, reading about the different subjects, reading about the different implications of choosing certain things and having some of your questions answered. There's a lot of information in that options booklet that is well worth taking the time to digest and read. From the 1st of March, you will be sent details about your individual appointments for the options interviews. We use our software called Whereby. It's the same package that we use when we're doing our learning review evenings. So there was a Year 9 parent information evening back in December, and you would have used the same Whereby technology to click into your video meeting. So we're going to be using the same process, and you will be sent individual times on for your interviews and details about how to rearrange them if the time doesn't suit. So from the 1st to the 5th of March, form tutors, individual subject teachers will keep talking to students around the option subject. A lot of information was shared last term in assemblies, etc., but that will carry on. We will use the Google Classroom structure to post any messages or presentations from individual subjects, particularly subjects like business and health and social care, which don't exist discreetly in Key Stage 3. So the subject leads there will be sharing information, and some sessions may be live discussions where students can come on and talk to those teachers about those subjects. And then from the 8th of March, hopefully, we have a bit of a phased return and students will be back on site for some of that week. And there will be information assembly for students led by myself about the process and the timeline, just reminding students how to go about applying. So before Tuesday the 16th of March, which is the day of the individual interviews, we ask that parents and students read the options booklet, watch the presentation if you haven't done so already. And then on Tuesday the 16th of March, you will have your individual appointment time, which is a 15-minute video meeting. They start from 3:45, so hopefully that's plenty of time for students to get home. You'll have a 15-minute slot with a member of staff to guide you through the process and the combinations of subjects that you're thinking about. And then you go away, you go online. The link will become live from Tuesday the 16th of March. You can apply via our website and all the details will come to you about how to do that. And you go through and select your 4 options and your 2 reserved subjects. And the deadline for that is Monday the 22nd of March. During the interview, if you feel that you will have an issue in terms of technology and being able to complete the process online, then if you mention that at your interview, then we will make sure that paper versions of the form are sent home in the post for you. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the front cover of the options booklet that will be landing on your doormat, hopefully over the next few days, and also in your email inbox, where you'll be able to look through an electronic version. So there's lots of information in there. So the booklet will take you through various things that you need to think about and consider. The first one that's already been mentioned is triple science versus combined science. So science, of course, is a compulsory core requirement, So combined science students will study all elements of biology, chemistry and physics and gain 2 GCSE qualifications. But for students who have a really strong interest in science and have aspirations to pursue biology, chemistry, physics, maybe at A-level or sixth form, then those students may want to learn science at a deeper or more detailed level, and triple science would be recommended for those students. So triple science actually counts as one of your option blocks, so you would mean that you have 3 subjects left to pick rather than 4, and the difference is quite significant in terms of hours. So combined science, you will have 9 hours of science lessons a fortnight, and triple scientists will have 14 lessons of science a fortnight, so 5 extra lessons because it is the equivalent of an extra option. So that's something that might inform the considerations that you make in terms of what options you want to do. The other thing is BTEC versus GCSEs, which has already been mentioned. So a reminder that BTEC subjects carry the same value as GCSEs and still allow access to post-16 courses like A-levels in the same way that GCSEs do. The main difference is the mode of study and the assessment process. So BTECs have a greater demand on time throughout the 2 years to complete high volumes of coursework rather than 100% examination at the end of the course. So they still include formally examining components, but it's not having the whole exam at the end of the year. So we do recommend that most students select one BTEC subject just to alleviate that exam pressure at the end of the 2 years. But we also advise against more than 2 BTEC subjects because then the volume of work gets too much and a lot of the deadlines are aligned. So that's again something to think about. Modern foreign languages. So year 9 this year, there are a handful of students who didn't study French or German, and there are students who studied French and not German and studied German, not French. So whatever language your son or daughter studied in year 9, they are able to, if they have an interest and a passion for languages, choose the other one to pursue. So you don't have to have, for example, you don't have to have studied German in year 9 to be able to choose it as an option moving forward. And that is, again, something that your child might want to consider, because we had like a mini options last year. And if your student didn't get the language that they wanted, it doesn't stop them from pursuing it for Key Stage 4. The BTEC in Performing Arts is dance or drama. So it's one qualification and students will choose whether they specialise in dance or drama. So they can't do both as such. So if your son or daughter is interested in dance, for example, and does not put a reserve as drama, then we won't necessarily automatically assume that they want to do drama. Although it's a different specialism, it's one qualification. And there are a handful of students that have been invited to think about Learning Support Core or Learning Support Additional. Now, both of these options will take away another option, and these are non-qualification subjects which serve to actually support students to stay on top of their work in the other subjects. It's only by invitation only, and if you are eligible, you will have a phone call if you haven't already this week or early next week, just talking you through what those options include so that you are well informed before your individual interview about what you might be considering for your son or daughter. And then there's additional qualifications. So computer science is a highly well-regarded GCSE, but one that hasn't run at our school for the last few years because there just hasn't been the demand or uptake from students. It is a highly scientific course with an emphasis on coding and programming. It requires a demanding level of mathematical and scientific skill, so it should really be reserved for the most able in those subjects. So if your child is interested in computer science and has a strong track record of a high attitude to learning in maths and a high aptitude for maths, then they can indicate on the form, there is a place to indicate on the form that they would be interested. So although it doesn't run as part of our provision, we are exploring opportunities to offer this as after school provision. It's likely to be hosted by us, but taught remotely by an expert outside of school, so a specialist computer science teacher. There is space, like I said, online on the form to actually indicate that your child is interested in this, and we will send out more information once we can see what the demand is. And community languages, if your child speaks a community language at home and has some skill in speaking, understanding it when someone else is speaking, reading and writing it, then we can support them. So although we won't be able to teach formal lessons in that community language, we can support them towards a qualification, a GCSE in that language. So the options booklet lists the languages that we currently hold, but you could express an interest. If there's anything on there that's not listed, then do express an interest on the options application form of what language you think your child may be able to work towards for GCSE. So hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. If you have more, the options booklet includes frequently asked questions pages. So there's a double page spread of frequently asked questions that come up year after year. So we have put the answers to those in your options booklet for more details. But also, you want to be thinking about what are the factors that you take into account when you're choosing your subjects. So you do need to think about what subjects you enjoy, what are your future aspirations, what subjects do you feel successful in, what really interests you, and what do you want to do after you turn 16. And not many children in year 9 know what they want to do when after they turn 16. So that's why a lot of what they have passions for and interests for will drive some of those decisions. But also, what are you prepared to work hard on for 2 years? And because the subject doesn't go away, once you make your choices, we can't change them halfway through the course because you will not be able to catch that work up. So what are you prepared to commit to and work hard for 2 years on? But there's also certain things that we don't want students to take into account when making those decisions. What are my friends choosing? Yeah, that is not a good way of choosing an option subject, simply because you may not even end up in the same class as them, even if they've chosen the same subject. Or you might be trying to get away from your friends. Maybe you've made a good decision that you want to be away from your friends. And again, it's not worth sacrificing your interests and your passions over. Another way of making a bad decision is to think about who is my favourite teacher, because there's no guarantee that that particular teacher will be teaching that subject to that year group in that particular year. And what subject will set the least homework? Again, not a very efficient way of choosing your options, because all homework becomes equitable at GCSE, and all GCSEs and BTECs go through a rigorous qualification process to make sure that they are equivalent in terms of the demand. So all subjects are equal in terms of the demand that's needed from the student. It's just that there will be different ways of working and different interests and topics within them. So you need to prepare for your options interview now by looking out for the options booklet, reading that through, looking out for your appointment time, and the last page of the options booklet looks like this, where you can make a note of your appointment time, and it shows you the thinking that you need to do before your appointment. So you need to be thinking about which subject from block A you would like to choose, and you write an X in the box. Which subject from block B, which subjects from block C, which subject from block D. And then you're allowed to choose 2 reserved subjects from anywhere, so from any block, by writing R1 and R2 in the boxes. So reserve 1 is if we couldn't give you those 4 choices that you chose with the X's, this would be your next favourite, and reserve 2 would be your second choice reserve. Okay, so again, you filling this out in your booklet is just preparing for your thinking. It's preparing for your discussion at your individual interview. You're not committing to anything until you fill in that application online, which goes live on Tuesday the 16th of March. Okay, so just a reminder of those key dates, and I will leave you with those. And a reminder to look out for the options booklet. Tuesday 16th of March is when we will next see you for your face-to-face individual, well, it's not quite face-to-face, it's through the remote video, but that's when we will next see you for your individual meeting to discuss your options. And then your deadline to get your options application completed online is Monday the 22nd of March. And in the meantime, feel free to speak to your teachers. There's a list of key staff in the options booklet who to speak to if you have any particular queries about particular subjects. So good luck, and we look forward to seeing you, albeit remotely through videos, on the 16th of March. Thank you very much. Bye.